Welcome to Indie Business Club, the podcast for independent creatives, freelancers, founders and business owners. He's Ben McKinney.
And she's Mel Barfield, and we're both copywriters and business owners sharing tips and advice we've picked up along the way. This episode is called The Day We Caught the Train, and it's all about fun times, days out, work jollies, or as we know all of those things, conferences and in-person business events. On this show, we will discuss how days away from the grind of work can give you a boost creatively, why it might pay to be selective about what events you attend, and forming firm friendships with other indie business owners that it actually helps your bottom line as well as your mental health.
And as always, we have a voice note on today's theme and my favourite part of the show, Your Friend and Mine, where we shout out someone we think is great.
You love a conference, don't you, Mel? Or as your husband calls it, a jolly.
A jolly. It's
he doesn't even have the work jolly in now, does he? He just calls it a jolly.
Are you going on a jolly? Another jolly? All your jollies? Yeah, but he does all right. I love it. It's my favourite part of being freelance, I think, because I can just do what I want. There's no, well, there is. I was going to say there's no CPD budget limit. There is a limit, but I can just do what I want when I want to. It's beautiful. You're slightly less. You still like it. You like a jolly. You like a jolly, don't you?
Yeah, I love them. I always find it incredibly worthwhile, and yeah, I probably want to go to more than I can now go to. Kind of now with like family responsibilities and that kind of thing, I'm a bit more selective. Let's put it that way about what I do go to and what I don't go to.
We're going to get on to the reasons to go to a conference, the things that might be a bit of a barrier to people, but that's definitely the case for me as well. There are more things I want to go to than I physically can, mainly childcare reasons. I can't go to everything. Yeah. So we have to be a little bit selective, but I've said this before, I do all right, don't I? I do all right. It helps if I'm speaking at one, and that helps you as well. If we were speaking at an event, that would be definitely a lot easier to swing, wouldn't it? Hint, hint, event organisers.
Did you used to go to many when you were an employee?
No, hardly any. I'm trying to think if I went to any in person. When I was an employee, because I've always worked in like local government, there was never like a big cool trade conference to go to, or like, just a load of councillors and
council con.
Just council con. That was just never a thing. So I never had anything. There'd be my most exciting day out would be things like advanced Excel training that I've forgotten everything from. So I think that's probably why I love it. We've also talked about this before, about how when you're younger and you go on school trips and stuff, you can just go and do things with your mates whenever you want. And as you get older, those opportunities are rarer and rarer. So a conference for freelancers and indie business owners is often as much about the jolly part, as my husband would say, as it is the learning. And I will tolerate a really crap conference if it means I can go somewhere, not have to look after my children, like have them coming in at 6 a.m. or earlier, and get a good night's sleep and fun with my pals. So just an early disclaimer that when we're talking about conferences, my motivation for going is not entirely CPD related.
You just want the undisturbed night's sleep, don't you?
I like the undisturbed night's sleep in a double bed, all by myself. I can starfish. That sounded like no, anyway. I can sleep like a starfish. I can have... Oh, do you know, Molly and Ange love the breakfast, and Bonnie as well. There's a lot of talk about what's the breakfast like in the hotel. I favour a porridge pot. We've gone off on a tangent already, but that's just an insight into my behind the scenes.
Porridge. Yes, so I think this is a worthy tangent because it's something I've been meaning to discuss. So you will.
I've been needing to raise this with you.
Hotel breakfast. You'll take your own porridge pot. I remember thinking that this was just utterly mental when you told me this, and you were going to one of the last ones that you went to.
Do you know why I love a porridge pot?
'Cause
Firstly,
it's cheap.
it's £1. But also, I can put my little porridge thing in. I do the hot water for the porridge, put the lid on, give it a stir and everything, and then I can dry my hair while that's, maturing in its pot. And then I can just like grab as much of it as I want to as I'm getting ready. So if you add on, this is such a tangent, but if you add on the cost of time in having a sit down breakfast downstairs in the canteen or whatever, it's the time efficient way of doing things, and I stand by it.
Well, I'm definitely with friends of the show, Molly, Ange, and Bonnie, and in terms of I would much prefer the hotel breakfast. But this does bring us on to kind of one of the things we were going to talk about, which is the cost, isn't it? Because it's one of the not necessarily negatives, but it's something definitely to think about when it comes to going away to a conference, because they're a really long day, and if you have to travel for it, it may be that it's a better idea for you to have an overnight stay. And you've probably just saved yourself 20 quid there on the hotel breakfast.
There you go. See?
By your dry.
Who's laughing now? I did have a porridge pot explosion once. I don't know if I told you about that. Where the lid, because they're obviously not that stable. It's a bit of cardboard with a bit of tinfoil on top, and one of them kind of popped in my bag, and it was just like sugary, powdery oat flour everywhere. Anyway, moving on. The cost can be immense. What is your what have you got a budget in mind when you're looking at which events to go to? What comes first, the budget or the other considerations?
No, I think it's probably more so now than ever. I think, like I've said, with sort of working out family responsibilities, childcare, the difference it makes to the week that both me and my wife then have if it's working around school runs and making difference in it, maybe bringing another family member in to help. It has to be worth it. So cost definitely does come into it. I don't know whether I have a budget or not. I don't think so, but I think I need to look at the speakers and think I can't miss it. That I think that's what it comes down to. It's looking at the speakers, looking at the talks and thinking I can't miss it. Because otherwise I almost think to myself, the thing I'm really looking forward to is going and seeing people like you and people like Dave, who I run the agency with. Obviously, Dave and I live a long way away from each other. So this is one of the few times in a year that we get to work together. So it has to be worth more than that, because otherwise I think to myself, why don't we all just book a train and get together for the day kind of thing and have a nice little day out,
This has been suggested by a friend of the show, Molly Scanlon, who I have already apologised to for. She reckons she named our last episode. I don't remember it. You don't remember it.
Allegedly,
but anyway,
yeah.
Allegedly. We love you, Molly, sorry. But yeah, she often says, we don't actually have to have a thing that we have to buy tickets for. We can just arrange something and have I think I called it a creative play date when we were talking about it before, just a day where you go and just do something, because then you still get the fringe benefits that I think are actually the main benefit for me of going to a conference, which is the time away from your business, talking with people who are like-minded and get it, and mulling over ideas, putting into words things that have just been like simmering in the back of your mind, thinking about, I might do this new product or new offering. And it's that time completely away from your desk where all of that gets to kind of come out and get sorted out in your mind. And just through those casual conversations, it's the downtime at any conference that I get the most benefit from, emotionally as well as like business wise. So the return on investment isn't, am I going to go, for me anyway, for some people it will be this. It's not, can I go and make a really strong connection within my network that'll then bring me in a direct project. It's not about that for me. It's about going and having a brain breather, I suppose.
I think what the cost implication does for me, and probably for everybody else as well, I don't think I'm alone in this, but depending on the cost of the ticket, it will either make me think, like if it's super affordable, there's no barrier then. You just think, well, I'll just book it, and kind of work it all out and go. For the ones where, and organisers are right to do it in a sense, because they have become, like you've mentioned CPD, they have become that thing, haven't they? If you're an employee, you can use your employer's CPD budget for this. Can you just say what CPD is for those of us who don't know?
Continual or continuous professional development.
Thank you.
For those of us like you who have never had a job. Ben's never had a proper job, everyone.
I have had a couple of proper jobs. They were just a long time ago. So if you're an employee and an employer has a budget for that, then that's an easy way.
Oh yeah, rinse that budget.
Rinse it, and also, but that's easier then for the people hosting the conference to kind of think, well, we can up ticket prices a bit. But if you're a freelancer or an indie business owner, a company of one, it's you paying it. It's obviously coming out of your profit for the year. And I think while it's really important to have some money set aside to invest in yourself, and this would definitely come under that. If we're going to one together soon, and the ticket was like 150 quid, and while that's not an insignificant amount of money, it was an amount of money that meant I didn't really have to think twice about it. It was okay. This is affordable. I can go. And then for another conference, for example, if the ticket was £500, that would probably be me thinking, there has to be something really,
There's a
really worth.
Definite like intake of breath moment.
It just makes me ask the question: what am I going to get from this? Because then I've got to buy the train, I've got to do a hotel, maybe 2 nights in a hotel if it's a long way away, and then you're thinking, do I want to spend £600-700 on this, or do I not? And do I want to just go and meet some friends and have a nice day out and buy lunch instead?
Play catch. One of the reasons that people might choose to spend big bucks on a ticket is a bit of a show of wealth, isn't it? Like, it's a bit of a show of, yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm going to this £500-700 conference. I'm going to fly to Amsterdam and do this conference that people know costs a lot of money to go to. So perhaps there's benefit in being seen to go to stuff. So for some people it might not be all about what they personally get out of it on the day or through being with other like-minded people. Perhaps a part of it is I'm going to go to this, I'm going to talk about it a lot on social media, it's going to give me content for days, and everyone will know that I must be doing okay in my business because I've bought this famously expensive ticket to this thing. You wouldn't go in for that though. That's not you.
I don't think that's me. No, there has to be something. It's hard to say tangible, because you don't always get that from a conference, and going there opens yourself up to receiving like creative ideas and to having that little boost that comes from them. So you and I were in London last week at the time of recording, for a little thing with You Are the Media, where I was on a panel, and it wasn't a massive event, but just going there and being part of it, what I got from it was that for the following 3 or 4 days over the weekend and into the following week, it was like, I'm suddenly having all of these ideas that I feel like have been pressed down and trapped. It had unlocked something. So it really was worth going. There was the cost to it was obviously travel. It was a really long day. There's the kind of the physical and mental energy that you expend. The next day was like,
there's definitely a hangover.
Kind of like really flat the following day. But yet being there, the intangible things that come from it are sort of unlocking those little ideas, just having somebody to bounce off in the same industry. Maybe a lot of us and we certainly do, and the people that listen to the show work from home or work in an office where it's just us, and we're not having those water cooler conversations with people, or we're not bouncing off each other person to person. So those intangible things are really important, I think.
Yeah, that is, as I said earlier, that's it. That's the draw for me, is those. And I said to you over the weekend, or maybe yesterday, you're really prolific with your ideas. You feel really, it was like I could see that from the outside as well, that you were having more, or you were pondering stuff that perhaps had been in the back of your mind, like a bit of a half a seed of an idea, and then having had that time away from the business. And also a very long train journeys. You love a train journey, don't you? Staring out the window. I
do like a train journey, yeah. It's just something about the movement. It's my preferred form of travel, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, I too have the the hangover the next day or the next few days, actually, if it's a longer event that's multiple days away from home. I really need to properly splat afterwards. I think it can be really overwhelming going to an event, and I don't know if it's worse if you know lots of people or don't know anyone. I think it's probably more tiring the more people you know, because you're being social with people and talking to everyone and trying to get around everyone and make sure you don't kind of miss out on speaking to people that you want to speak to. But whereas going to I don't think I've ever been to an event where I haven't known anyone. A bit like you like going to the cinema on your own, don't you?
I never get to do it.
Never get to do it.
I do like it. No, I'm very happy to go to an event where I don't know anyone. That wouldn't put me off at all. In some cases, it would sort of mean that I focused on the event a bit more and perhaps tried to get a bit more out of the actual, content.
I have done it, actually. I'm just thinking, and this is why you should go to events on your own sometimes. The very first Northampton marketing meetup, I don't think I knew anyone there. And now I've got loads of mates out of going there. So it's definitely worth getting out of the house if it's your kind of thing to do that. But if you're going to an event during a normal work day, then there's the loss of income. I don't know if we've mentioned that, as well as the cost. I have to pay a brownie point. We've got brownie point system here, childcare tokens. So I have to be very, very organised and give my husband a load of dates well in advance to see if he can do. But we've had it before where I've had a family member come and stay, like a grandparent come and stay, so that it can help me be released to go to stuff. It's a lot easier if I'm speaking at something, then I can get an easier pass. But let's talk a little bit more about the benefits, because we've focused a lot on the benefit for you as a business owner having time out and seeing your mates, which is the main thing. But it's also, let's talk a bit about the actual CPD and learning side of it. I'm going to put you on the spot. I haven't asked you this before. What is the best lesson you've learned from a conference, like a talk or something? Or a moment that's really stuck out for you?
Where I've been in the audience.
You can do both. do number one when you've been in the audience, then number two you can gloat about speaking at Copacabana.
I think from being in the audience, it's a good question. I'm trying. I know, and I don't have an answer if you spin it back to me after. Well, let me have a think as well. Because of certainly in the last year and a half, because we've mentioned Baby 3 on the show a lot of times. I haven't done many kind of away days for the business in the last year and a half, so I'm kind of racking my brains a bit. I think I would go back to Copacabana, which is it's no longer in operation. It was a copywriting festival organised by Andy Maslin and Vicky Ross, and in 2017 I didn't feel almost worthy enough to go. I remember seeing it. I just started as a freelance copywriter, just starting to build my business, and yeah, I remember seeing that it was happening and not really feeling like. I think I thought to myself, this is the kind of thing I could go to next year. So I was
I'm a proper copywriter.
Yeah, I was a little bit like, I don't think I can manage it. Anyway, circumstances happened that I went and eventually spoke. It kind of kick-started the whole business, not just from speaking there, just from being there. The connections that I got from meeting people and the inspiration that I picked up from the talks and from just being around, mingling and feeling welcomed and everything into the industry. I think it very much kick-started the business that I'd kind of been umming and ahhing about. I'd done the training and I'd started picking up one or two clients here or there, but it wasn't like I was fully into it. It was very much a little side hustle, if you want to use that expression.
I do not want to use that expression.
I really thought you would.
Ouch.
It was so, but it made, when I came back from that, I thought, I can really do this. I can really make a business out of this and go for it. So I don't necessarily have a lesson that I've picked up from a particular talk, but that feeling of inclusion and sort of immersing myself into something and then feeling part of it, that is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about one of the benefits of going to industry conferences where you're surrounded by, and that's something that I find at CopyCon, where you just know you're in a room with people that will get the in-jokes and the copywriting jokes, and they know it's feeling part of something and kind of belonging to your industry. I think it's a really powerful way to do that. Just want to quickly mention, I mentioned it already, but the marketing meetup, the whole reason that they set up in the first place was to be a welcoming and inclusive and warm and friendly place for people. Because I just want to touch on the fact that some people, we're both quite extroverted. We are quite comfortable walking in somewhere we don't know anyone. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people find it really challenging, and it makes them feel a little bit sick. So that's why the marketing meetup was set up in the first place, by Joe and James, to be that really welcoming kind of space. So if you're nervous about going somewhere and you do spend all your day at home not really talking to anyone, I'd suggest dipping a toe in first with some online virtual co-working, where you can just like gently meet people from the comfort of your own office or chair. And then the next step would be going somewhere like the marketing meetup or co-work crew, where it's a really like gentle introduction to going places. And then step up to going to a big fat conference with loads of people.
Can I give you a little anecdote about going back to Copacabana again, and that just feeling of sort of welcome, of being welcomed. So at one of the events the night before, I got to meet a lot of the speakers and sort of mingle with them, and you do get that feeling when you go to something and there are people there who you feel are almost bigwigs is the wrong term, but celebrities within your industry.
Oh my God, do you remember the first time we met Dave? Do you remember the first time we met Dave Harland off LinkedIn?
I do remember the first time I met Dave Harland off LinkedIn. Hello, Dave.
Oh, that's Boster.
So met the speakers, and you think to yourself, they really are just normal people like me, but they're doing something that I want to do. But I remember meeting friend of the show, Glenn Sturgis, who at the time was chief copywriter at Ogilvy One. You know,
I don't know if you've heard of Ogilvy. Have you heard of Ogilvy? This is a guy called David Ogilvy. Actually, some people might not have done. Sorry, can I just give context? David Ogilvy is probably the most famous advertiser, copywriter, hero to people, would you say?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Probably the best known.
Yes,
well, just realise that not everyone's a copywriter, Ben. We need to be inclusive to the graphic designers that listen.
That's true. And web designers. We welcome all kind of designers. Anyway, but
Glenn,
I remember speaking to Glenn. I was really, really just starting out, and Glenn was incredibly generous with his time, and he gave me his business card, and I kept it in my wallet for about 3 years. This is kind of a little bit cringe to say.
You showed it to me the other day.
I've still got it. Yeah, it's in my desk drawer now. But having it and having that little token, you know, with me, when I found things difficult, you know, in the, say, 6 months later or a year later, I would rub the business card, and a little bit of the magic would sprinkle out for me. No, but what it would do is it just reminded me that I belonged and that I was good at what I was doing, and there was a space for me in this kind of career in this industry. And I wouldn't have got that if I hadn't been to a conference. So to some extent, that is a story that very much says it depends perhaps where you are in your business or your career or whatever you're doing. That might kind of dictate what you get from them. But yeah, if I hadn't been open to going, I hadn't gone and hadn't had that lovely chat with Glenn and everybody else that was there, yeah, I think, I don't know, things would be different now, I suppose.
Oh, well, I enjoyed that story. Thank you for sharing.
I think it's probably a good time for us to jump to our voice notes. We've got a good one today. Yeah,
and this is the perfect voice note because it's from someone that I actually met at the marketing meetup in Northampton. And he is very generous with his time, and he knows a thing or two about organising events as well. It is Nick Crawford.
Nick is a marketing consultant who helps brands and their agencies unlock the full value of their customer relationships and upskill and train their teams. He's also an international speaker who often surprises audiences by including a balloon-based twist in his talks. And he's also the host of the Marketing Meetup in Milton Keynes, and that's why we've asked him to do a voice note for today.
And can I just say, the most grateful voice noter yet. If people would like to bear this in mind, if you get asked to do a voice note, what a lovely intro. I'll let Nick say it.
Hi, Ben and Mel. As a long-time listener, I'm thrilled to contribute to Mel's favourite segment of the show. I'm a firm believer that if you're trying to grow a business based on relationships, then showing up at events can really make a difference. We all talk about know, like, and trust in business, right? Well, being in the room, whether virtually or in person, fast tracks that whole process. But that's what people often get wrong about networking. They go in expecting instant business, and that's not what it's about. Let me share a quick story that perfectly illustrates that. 8 years ago, I met a guy called Sam at a roundtable event. He was working for a travel company. I was offering marketing consultancy. We clicked, shared experiences, stayed in touch even when a potential project fell through. Fast forward to today, we're working on an amazing project for an email audit together. And it's because we met from that event and then maintained that connection over the years. And that's the real power of events. You're not just collecting LinkedIn profiles. You're planting seeds for relationships that might bloom years later. And as someone who now runs events and has developed great friends, new contacts, grown my network completely, I see the real value time and time again. And it might feel uncomfortable at first, but being in the room does enable that magic to happen. And it does get easier with practice. So my best advice, find the events that feel right for you, be genuinely interested in others, and play the long game. Thanks.
So grateful. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. You can find Nick on LinkedIn and also at his consultancy, Twist Consultancy Ltd. And there'll be a link to that and his LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So find the right event for you. Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of talked about that, haven't we? That it's got to be worthwhile for you to go to. It's got to fit where you are in your career, and it's got to be kind of within your budget and that kind of thing. I think being open, though, he talked about opening yourself up, and I do think that's important, that good things come from going to places, I think, especially if we say all the time, if you're an indie business owner, work on your own, a company of one, those connections make a massive difference, don't they? And I'm still connected with a lot of people I met at Copy Cabana. That's 8 years ago. A lot of people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and working in the business would be really different without it. Yeah,
I am guilty of being a bit of a LinkedIn connector as soon as I meet people at events and stuff, but it's because I don't want to lose remembering. I'm terrible with names, really terrible with names. Aren't I, Benedict? And I find it really hard to kind of place people instantly. So I'll often get my phone out and be like, "Oh, are we already connected?" Because I don't want to walk away from that conversation and be like, "Oh, I don't know who they were." So I'm a bit guilty of doing the whole whip out the LinkedIn thing.
Wouldn't it be awful if you met somebody at an event and said, "Oh, nice
it's
to meet you"?
Happened already.
And they
it's
said,
happened.
"We've already met before."
It has happened. I knew to say that. But that's where we use Molly's advice to say it's great to see you. Oh no, I've given away the secret. And
that's
why
you have your phone on you the whole time, just scrolling LinkedIn so that you can match
desperately trying to find someone's face. Now, can I just stop a minute and let me just defend myself here, because I've said this before and I sounded like a diva then and I'm going to sound like a diva now. If somebody's connected to me but they never post, I'm not going to recognise them because I don't see their little tiny face. And even if they do post a lot and it comes up on my feed and I kind of know who they are, their tiny little 5p piece sized or smaller profile picture on my screen, it's really hard for my brain to connect that to a moving person, in my defence. I liked what Nick said about it being about planting seeds and being a long game. I think a lot of people, especially nowadays, try and fast track stuff, and it needs to be organic and go slow. It's not pleasant if you're at a conference or a networking event and somebody just goes straight in there with a business card, slapping you in the face with it, and then is instantly in your DMs trying to pitch you something. I've found the best results come from going into places just looking to, like Nick said, make friends and human to human, just get to know people and build your network for that purpose. And then the bonus is that when somebody needs the thing that you do, then they like you already. Yeah. I like mentioning know, like, and trust as well, because I wang on about that all the time. So excellent voice note. Thank you, Nick.
Just a disclaimer on Glenn Sturgis' behalf. He didn't slap me in the face with his business card.
He would
was
never.
a mutual. It was
Did
a
you
mutual
have a business
handing
card
over.
to give him?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
No, I find with business cards, you end up like you have to order like 5,000 of them, don't you? And then 6 years later, you've got 4,937 still left in your drawer or in the.
I think my husband's got mine in his wallet.
Have you got some?
No, I binned them because they had. I had a great business card because it had my picture on it and it said, "You'll know it's me because I look like this." Then I had a haircut and had to bin them. No, it was Musk's fault, as most things are in the current climate. He changed the name of Twitter, ruined it for everyone, and I had a Twitter icon on my business card, and I was just like, well, I'm not going to ever hand these out again. That plus having a haircut, And my joke about "you'll know it's me because I look like this" didn't work anymore because I didn't look like that.
Can we talk a little bit about the people that organise conferences? I've got a lot of respect.
I really do.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say I've got a lot of respect for the people that organise conferences and manage them and put them on. There's so much that goes into the organisation of the events, isn't there? And I think when you're an attendee and you've paid a lot of money and put a lot of effort into travelling, it can be easy, can't it, to go to them and sort of be like, almost you're tired, it's been a long day and you think things aren't going exactly the way I wanted them to go, or maybe, you're unsatisfied with something. But I think there's a balance to be struck, isn't there? I think when organising an event, you've got to think about ticket prices, the value you're offering, how are you going to pop the ticket prices in? I remember talking to excuse me. I remember talking to somebody who organised an event pre-pandemic, and one thing they didn't realise when they went into it was that I think it was organised through Eventbrite, and Eventbrite didn't release the funds until the event had happened. So they basically had to fund the event. So all of the ticket sales and everything is kept back, I guess as a fraud thing. But once the event had happened, then they released it. So there's all sorts that goes into it. And I've got a lot of respect for the people that organise events like that. Have you ever considered organising an event, Mel?
I used to be an events organiser as my job, and I can't tell if you're just teeing me up to say that or if you've forgotten it.
What do you think the answer to that is?
I think I know the answer, but I will protect your modesty by pretending that you teed me up. I used to organise this big thing in our town, Party in the Park. Used to do big, and it's very stressful, very, very stressful. And I used to not be able to sleep very well for the weeks leading up to it. But we've also had an insight as being speakers, through being speakers at events. You get to see some of the inner workings and the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And there's so much going on, so much to remember. Can we very quickly shout out Mark Masters from You Are the Media, because he runs Creator Day and he's put an enormous amount of effort and time and work into making the event feel like people by the time you get there. So he's set up WhatsApp groups for people that are going. He's set up, last year he did a little mini podcast series, and he's someone who will bend over backwards to make sure that everything that could be done to make people feel comfortable and included has been done. And I think as long as if something goes wrong at an event but you feel like the organisers have tried their best and it's something out of their control, or they're really apologetic and they've learned from it, then I think it's fine. But when you're at an event and there's something quite seriously wrong or unsatisfactory and they don't care, then I'm not going to go back to something like that. That hasn't happened to me yet, though.
Right, I think it's time for your favourite part of the show, Mel. This is actually your favourite part of the show. Nick called the voice note your favourite part of the show, but we all know that it's the Your Friend and Mine feature. Who are we featuring today?
Today it is Lorna Smart.
Lorna is an editor, a proofreader and a content writer from Norwich in Norfolk. She's literally been the biggest supporter of our show, hasn't she? Right from the start.
She's been an absolute star.
Yeah, right from the start when we started doing the live events on LinkedIn as Barfield and McKinney. She attended all of those. And even now we get a lovely note from Lorna every time we release an episode. And her feedback has been crucial for us in terms of how we've taken the show forward, hasn't it? So, Lorna, thank you ever so much for your support. We really appreciate it. And you're our friend of the show today.
Thank you, Lorna.
That'll do for today, I think. If you're enjoying the show, there are a few ways that you can support us. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Amazon, leave us a review.
We're also both on LinkedIn. I'm Mel Barfield and he's Ben McKinney, so connect with us there. And just a quick note that we put a bit of a call out on LinkedIn to ask people's opinions about conferences. And we had such a big response that we're going to do a whole other B-side, including everyone's thoughts on conferences. And we'll also then cover anything we forgot to mention today. So it's a bit of a win-win, really. Yeah. And you can leave us a testimonial if you are that way inclined, so we can use it to brag about the show and get other people to listen as well.
We're nearing your goal of testimonials, aren't we, as well?
We're getting
you put
there.
Out the shameless target of 10 testimonials. Have we got 6 now?
I think it's 6 or 7, yeah. Yeah, it's going well.
Listener,
your job is to collate them.
3.
Have you not done it yet?
You told me it wasn't like I didn't have to do it straight away.
I did say it wasn't urgent.
Finally, if you're really, really enjoying the show, and that second really is important, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/Indie Business Club. Ko-fi is KO-FI. Every penny of your contributions helps us to keep making the show. And yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
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 So grateful.